Whidbeyverse, and I thought I would start off the Whidbeyverse a second. No, second. Yeah, I think this is, let's see. And okay, let's start this, huh? Okay. Um, hmm. I don't even know if I'm going right now. Let's see. My channel. See if I'm going. Yes, I am. I am live. Okay, that's good to know. Let's see if I can pull me up and any reverberations, echoes. I don't know if I can hear anything. Okay, cool, cool. Okay, that's the good thing. Um, I am speaking, so you can hear me. Let's start the show. Welcome to the Halloween special of the Whidbeyverse. It is 11:14, 11:15. I was hoping to start at 11, like an hour till the witching hour, I believe. But no, kind of got a bit into technical issues. But that's okay, because here we have a picture of the fort, the castle fort. I helped build this. It was pretty cool. Didn't do much. Me and my class, we went out to the playground in the park. While they were constructing it, we took the tires, we took toothbrushes, cleaned the tires, did some other things too. You know, it's we didn't do much, but we did help build this. It's always been a point of pride in me that I helped build this wonderful playground. Played in it quite a bit. Now I want to build a new one that's for adults. Okay, well, enough about that story. Let's go on to a new one, shall we? Let's see. Sean Connery died today. I believe he died on Halloween. I really like Sean Connery as an actor. I didn't know him as a human being. I'm not qualified to speak to his character. I don't think really anybody else is unless they personally knew him. But great actor. Great James Bond, by the way. I really liked him as James Bond, but I liked him in a lot of movies, particularly Finding Forrester. I don't know if you've seen Finding Forrester. Great writing movie for writers. Yeah, it's really good. Like, he plays this like retired writer who befriends this young prodigy. Yeah, he's like really smart. He reads all the time, this kid, and he's with his other friends and they dare him to go into this old guy's house and break in. And like the guy's like, sure, okay. So he breaks into Sean Connery's house and like Sean Connery awakens like, who the hell are you? Chases him out. Like the kid comes back, and like he's like trying to see if things are cool. And like Sean Connery says, write to me like a 5,000 word essay or I should stay the fuck out of my apartment. Well, the kid comes back the next day with the 5,000 word essay, and like he leaves it, and the guy and like Sean Connery's like, come back tomorrow, and so he comes back tomorrow. Sean Connery hands him back the essay with all the corrections. It's great. It's a great friendship. It's a great movie. It's one of those Me Too type movies after Good Will Hunting came out. But I find it's really interesting because Finding Forrester, I think, is one of the few Me Too movies that's actually better than the movie that inspired that whole chain reaction. I really like Sean Connery in that movie. I like the kid in that movie. It's great, I would highly recommend Finding Forrester, especially if you're a writer. Again, like, Sean Connery was the badass, and that's pretty cool. And again, like, I really like him the best. I think his best role was as Professor Jones in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. As a student of the Crusades, I can honestly say that Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is my favorite Crusade, and Sean Connery has a great deal to do with that. He's going completely against character, you know? He's always cast as like the badass, and then like in this he's cast as the librarian, the dad, you know, the professor. And the thing is, he was really good in the role, and in fact, I dare say that is his best role. At least out of everything I've seen, it's his best role. I love that movie. I love Henry Jones Sr. He's great, and I find that's true with a lot of artists and people I respect. Like when they do something that's completely the reverse, the complete opposite of what they usually do, I find that it's usually their best work. For example, Sean Connery is, you know, Professor Henry Jones Sr. Or you could go to the Crystal Method. The Crystal Method is great, great electronic music, and you know, I love all their music, but it's their single song, "Falling Hard" with Maiko. I don't know how to pronounce her name. I've read it, but I think that's my favorite song of theirs because it's the complete opposite of what they usually do with their music, and they did it very well. So yeah. Anyway, so Indiana Jones and his dad. Well, wait and see what happens with Indiana Jones. Always did want a fifth one now, like with Disney in charge and like everything going on. I'm not sure I want a fifth one anymore. I would have liked a fifth one with Indiana Jones and his kid, you know, from George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. And I know, I've been on the internet saying before saying Indiana Jones didn't need his family and stuff like that, and I still hold that to be true. But like, if you are going to tell a story with his family, that'd be a good story too. And my issue with another Indiana Jones film, at least starring, Shia LaBeouf, was at the time Shia LaBeouf was going through a complete mental breakdown. You know, I didn't think he was in a position to take over as Indiana Jones at the time, but he worked through his issues, you know, and that's good for him, you know. We all try to work through our issues. That's the thing. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fail. The point is to try. Just like, you know, striving for perfection or knowledge. You're never going to get to perfection. You're never going to get all the knowledge. The point is to strive and see how far you can get. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, Shia LaBeouf worked through his issues. So anyway, this isn't about Shia LaBeouf or Indiana Jones, but I really like Indiana Jones. Anyway, so yeah, in terms of working through issues, I find that I think Lucas has issues with his father, but I don't think like he should be admonished for that. Actually, I know like that guy Doomcock, Overlord DVD. He's always admonishing Lucas, saying he has issues and stuff, and it's like, well, don't ball him out for that because it's actually Lucas's issues which create some of your favorite art of his. Obviously, like Lucas might have issues with his father, and he's working through them through his artwork. For example, like Indiana Jones reconnects with his father, you know? And, again, like if you... Oh, sorry, second. Let's see. What am I doing? Second. Oh, wait, here. I'm sorry. Second. I should prepare a bit more, you know? Here, just a second. This is it. Yeah. Luke and Vader. I don't know what I'm doing with this here. So anyway, Luke and Vader. That's not a very good picture, as you can see, but it's the best I can do. Obviously, in Return of the Jedi, well, there are always father-son issues in Star Wars, especially between Luke and Vader, of course. And like, I find that in Return of the Jedi, it's actually a favorite of a lot of people before 1994. Okay, like, Luke finally worked through his issues with his father, Darth Vader, and I find that, again, like, if you watch Joseph Campbell in The Power of Myth, there is a dialogue between Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyers, where Bill Moyers is like suggesting that Luke making peace with his father is essentially Lucas making peace with his father, And yeah, that makes sense actually because, you know, as a writer myself, and as all artists do, we take our issues and we work through them in our art, or at least we attempt to. Uh, Shameless plug in my upcoming book, Assassin of the Cross, which is very close to coming out. I worked through a couple issues I had, with my father and my religion, and yeah, came out the better for it. Art is therapeutic. And anyway, this is not about like Lucas or anything. Sean Connery is the main issue, and Sean Connery was Bond, and I'm just wondering, like, how is it? How frickin' is it that? Yeah, second. Yeah, how is it that Mission Impossible now is what James Bond used to be, and like what James Bond is now is not James Bond? How is it that frickin' Mission Impossible took over? That's craziness. That is absolute craziness that Mission Impossible is now what the new James Bond is. That's craziness. It's like the Orville becoming Star Trek. What's happening? Anyway, Mission Impossible is great. It's part of the spy craze that of the 60s that James Bond created. And yeah, for a lot of people, Sean Connery is James Bond. And I can't fault them for that. Like, Connery is good at playing the badass. But just in my opinion, like, going against type to what he usually plays that's unique. And that's where he really shines, in my opinion. But if you like Sean Connery and his roles, yeah, comment below. What's your favorite Sean Connery performance? What's your favorite Sean Connery movie? Excuse me. Yeah, so, anyway, that's enough of that. Like, in terms of reading, let's go into my reading, of course. I finished reading Calvin and Hobbes, the complete Calvin and Hobbes last month, and I was just like really, really worried as I was getting near and near to the end of Calvin and Hobbes. Why? Because I'm starting to realize as I'm reading Calvin's dialogues and his like views on the world, I'm like, holy shit, we're starting to listen to Calvin's philosophies and enact them in today's 2020 world. Yeah, like, doesn't this picture really scream 2020 and like what everything's going on right now? I know, like, my generation is a generation that's been raised on Calvin and Hobbes, and it's great to act like Calvin when you're 6 to 10 or whatever. It's fun, but like when you're an adult, perhaps it's not best to listen to Calvin. Anyway. Calvin and Hobbes is a classic. Would highly recommend reading all of it. If you have kids, like, share it with your kids. Yeah, it's a brilliant strip, and yeah, I don't know if Bill Watterson is out there, but if you can hear me, Bill, thank you. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for that strip. Anyway, what's the next thing I read? Zorro by Alex Toth. Yeah, this is by the guy that designed Space Ghost from Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Alex Toth is really interesting because one of the things is the reason he was so good at drawing, I think, was he wasn't really encumbered by like color because he was colorblind. So he just worked on the images and the inking and stuff. And anyway, that's cool. He had a dynamic sort of action, really defined comic book action. And the problem is like most artists today, most writers, comic book people today, have never read Alex Toth. They don't even know who he is, or much less heard of him. And the thing is, it shows they've never read Alex Toth, because if you read modern comics now, well, the action isn't that good. But if you read Alex Toth's Zorro, you see where, like, comic book action of, like, the 70s, 80s, 90s, he figured it out better than most people have, and a lot of the people from the 70s, 80s, 90s were following his lead when it came to action in comics. And yes, this Alex Toth's Zorro, it's based off the Guy Williams Disney TV show, a brilliant TV show starring my favorite Zorro. Yeah, my second favorite Zorro is Antonio Banderas. Uh, Probably makes me uncultured swine, but whatever. Um, okay. Well, anyway. Nemo covers. I read the Nemo trilogy by Alan Moore. Like, this was really good. It was really good. I did say I was going to eventually obtain and read the Nemo trilogy, which I did. It's a fantastic trilogy of books. I would highly recommend them. I think her name is Johnny or Janie Nemo. Great character, like brilliant stories. I know I keep saying it's brilliant, but if you read them, like, you'd see. I don't know, like, I guess taste is subjective, but, I'm the kind of guy that liked it when I saw Frank Miller go nuts in comics. Like, Frank Miller went nuts and I was loving every moment of it. Perhaps that makes me a bit sadistic, I don't know. But, sometimes an artist going crazy in their artwork is just as entertaining as when they were brilliant at it. Like, brilliance and craziness is often related. Um, anyway, yeah, that's how I see it, anyway. So, what else have I read? As I say, I've actually read on Stranger Tides, Absolutely, I've read on Stranger Tides. Uh, so, let's see. As you can see, on Stranger Tides. This is a book by Tim Powers, actually, and it's quite a good book. It's got a character called Jack Shandy, right? John Shandanyak, and he has this girl you meet in the first chapter named Beth Herwood, and there's a lot of characters you meet in there. Her father, Leo Friend, just like so many different characters, and it's a great adventure yarn, really good. Like, as I was reading through it, I was forgetting that, like, there was even a movie based off of this. And so I finished the book, right? And I'm like, wow, that was a really damn good pirate yarn. And then, like, I thought about it, and I'm like, what the hell was this movie then? This has nothing to do with the book, pretty much. Like, the only character that really, the only character that had anything to do with the book was Blackbeard over in the far right. Like, he was the only character from the book that was actually in the movie. It's like, I was reading everything in the book and practically nothing in the book actually happened in the movie. I mean, they go to the Fountain of Youth, of course, but, that's like right in the middle of the book. Well, it is similar. It's actually quite different. Quite different. From what happened in the movie. Even the fountain is described very differently from what's in the movie. And I know, like, my mom essentially says, welcome to what Hollywood does to books. And it's like, I'm not used to it being this severe, though. I'm not used to being, like, the changes being this severe to a book. I mean, I've read Jurassic Park and seen the movie. Like, the movie at least has the core element of the book there. The core story. Starship Troopers, again, it's different. A lot of it's mostly training in the book, but it's a very engaging read. And yes, what happens in the movie does happen in the book and more. Like Pirates of the Caribbean, it's like they travel to the fountain with Blackbeard. That's about it. Nothing else actually happens. Like, not even the traveling to the fountain occurs exactly the same. Like, nothing in this movie actually happens in the book, I was so disappointed, which actually made me kind of... I was just interested in reading the book that the most expensive movie ever made was based off of. And it's like, they didn't base anything off of the book. The only thing they did was take the name On Stranger Tides and attach it to Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, I know Blackbeard in the book is also supernatural and has a crew of the undead. Well, zombies. It's complicated, but practically nothing in the movie happens in the book. And, like, anyway, that's enough of a rant on that. As you can see, this was supposed to be covering the other one. Anyway, this right here, this is the one, this is the cover that I read on Stranger Tides. It's a cool cover. I totally thrashed this book reading it, but that's okay. I usually do. Okay. Now, going on to the horror movies. Happy Halloween, everybody. Well, what have I been doing? I've been watching some horror movies, you know. I watched The Hound of the Baskervilles with Jeremy Brett. Was watching Murder by Decree with Christopher Plummer and James Mason. That's enough the Sherlock Holmes horror I was watching. I was watching Hound of the Baskervilles by Hammer Studios with Peter Cushing as well. That was pretty gothic. It's like, have you seen anything else? It's like, yes, I was watching An American Werewolf in London. I saw Scream 2. It's been a hell of a Halloween season for me. And what I wanted to recommend is essentially like these movies. Bud Abbott and Lou Costello meet the Invisible Man. Bud Abbott and Lou Costello meet the killer, Boris Karloff. Anyway, these are great, funny movies. Like, I love Abbott and Costello. They're a brilliant comedic duo from the 40s and up to the 50s. Yeah, when I was in my film class, my professor actually played a clip from the Naughty 90s, an Abbott and Costello flick. It takes place in the 1890s. Would have been interesting to see them, like, be in the Naughty 90s, and they're in a movie that takes place about 50 years in the future. But no, it's the 1890s instead. And they do their stand-up act, Who's on First? And according to Abbott and Costello, that stand-up act they do in the movie is the best performance they've ever done. So we have that recorded for posterity on Blu-ray now, or DVD. Would VHS still be VHS is still playable? I don't know. Anyway, my teacher played that just to show us the possibilities of dialogue and wit in dialogue, and like nobody was better at wordplay than Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, like at least in terms of film and dialogue writing. Anyway, I find that like some of their Universal monster movies are like probably some of the best monster movies you can watch. For example, here's Abbott and Costello meet the killer, Boris Karloff. Again, Boris Karloff played the Frankenstein monster most famously. But I believe he is also the voice and narrator of The Grinch and How the Grinch Stole Christmas Christmas special. Yeah, that was like him voicing the narrator and the Grinch. And as you can tell, like Boris Karloff has a very lovely singing voice. Very baritone, I believe. So, anyway, then there's another one with Boris Karloff. Abbott and Lou Costello meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I really liked this one because while it was an Abbott and Costello Universal horror movie, I did feel that this one was like the closest to an actual Universal horror film. Like a straight up Universal horror film. This was the closest, even though it had Abbott and Costello. And the mask slipped a little. Okay. Well, anyway, let's put that mask back on. So, let's see. It's really interesting. These are great films to watch. Like, it doesn't need to be Halloween to watch these. Like, I guess it helps, but anyway. Let's see. It's still Halloween where I am. Anyway, as you can see, like, Abbott and Costello. And, anyway, like, George Lucas, I believe, totally took Abbott and Costello, like, Abbott and Costello meet the Mummy and stuff, great, but I think he took these guys and, like, transformed them into, R2-D2 and C-3PO in Star Wars. Now, I know, like, George Lucas also took heavy inspiration from The Hidden Fortress, where there were a couple of peasants that were the main stars, like a duo of peasants. And, you know, I have no doubt he took inspiration from that too. But I tell you, you know, while he did take inspiration from that, he took the personality and quirks of Abbott and Costello and put them into R2-D2 and C-3PO. And, if you look at the Hidden Fortress and the Abbott and Costello films, I'm pretty sure you'll find, like, the side characters, like, the seemingly insignificant side characters of those movies, like all these movies, the seemingly insignificant side characters are actually the main characters. Like, think about it. Like, C-3PO and R2-D2 are the main characters of the Star Wars franchise. They always have been, and, like, until Disney bought them, they always would be. They were the main characters. It wasn't Luke. It wasn't Anakin. I mean, the Skywalkers were in there. Like, Han Solo was in there. Obi-Wan was in there. Yoda was in there. But they weren't the main characters. They were the cast of characters. The main characters were R2-D2 and C-3PO. The movies followed them. And, like, they were going to follow them into the last trilogy. But, Bob Iger kind of conned George Lucas out of Star Wars and Indiana Jones and everything else that was great in our geek fandom. And, yeah, I've often wondered, like, how could George Lucas fall for that? He wrote that scene. How could he fall for it? He wrote it. Okay. Yeah. Here's the other thing. I have said before that I find the Star Wars fan base to have been one of the more toxic fan bases. But here's the thing. Despite how, like, much crap we gave George Lucas over the prequels, some of it was legitimate criticism, I'll admit, but I feel like we're hurling a lot of abuse at him. But the thing is like, George Lucas never called us bigots, racist, homophobes, sexists, whatever, Never called us a single name. He's too busy counting the money we were giving him by buying the movies we were complaining about, buying the toys based off the movies we were busy complaining about. He's too busy counting the money. And, I get it, like, we're complete dicks to him. I myself, like, have engaged in it, but not, like, in a serious way. I was, like, more treating it as kind of a lark. I was so over the top about it, I knew, like, nobody could actually take me seriously. It was a joke to me, I was treating it as a joke, and, I think everybody kind of got how sarcastic I was being, but that's kind of the thing about 2020. You're not allowed to tell jokes anymore, because nobody has a sense of humor anymore. At least, there are people with senses of humor. There are. We're out there. Anyway, the Hidden Fortress. Like, again, Star Wars is very Japanese, but enough about that. I want to talk about the next subject now. As the main subject I've been wanting to talk about, which is, like, I like 3D movies. I have a 3D TV. People say, like, 3D TVs are gimmicks. Those are people that have never seen Doctor Strange in 3D. Especially after having some green nut butter. Anyway, the point is like, I feel that a lot of movies should have been turned into 3D that haven't been during the 3D craze. And they're screaming for a 3D. For example, a 3D conversion that should have happened is actually from Disney. Second. The hell? Second. What's going on? Okay. Oh, crap. Second. Oh, that's the issue. Okay. Well, it turns out that I need a source file. Good to know. I just screwed myself out of the rest of the visuals. So, how about we go up here? Like, bring me up here a bit. Yeah, let's see something. Yeah, why not? Take this and just take this and yeah. Well, I don't know what I'm doing anymore, but I do know I don't have any more images to share, so you're going to have to listen to me just talk now about what I want to say without any visual imagery, but that's fine. As you can see, I got myself a bit shaving, but if in case you're wondering. Anyway, Fantasia. It's like, how come Disney like decided to do all these 3D conversions of their classic movies, and they decide with the Disney Renaissance? Now, I'm not opposed to like the Nightmare Before Christmas being converted into 3D. I quite like that movie in 3D, by the way. But the problem is, like, they started doing movies, their animated movies, 2D. They started converting them to 3D, and they had Beauty and the Beast 3D, The Lion King 3D, and The Little Mermaid 3D. And I'm like, how can you do that? You know? How can you frickin' like take those movies and turn them into 3D first, you know? It's like you had so much better movies. You could have so many better movies in your library you could have used. And one of them that was screaming for it was actually Fantasia, you know? And it's like, how can you not use Fantasia? Fantasia is a masterpiece. It is one of the finest pieces of art ever composed in film. It truly is. Like, the sequences are breathtaking. This practically created, and I'm telling you, this practically created the music video. Like, we do think it was, second. Come on. Let's see. Pulling up video files for you now, because, sorry. Technical difficulties, people, but we're working through them. Bear with me. Anyway, Fantasia is truly trippy. Definitely good for green up butter and stuff, absolutely. So, what's another good movie, another good Disney movie that should have been used, which, of course, should be bum ba bum 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 Tron. This movie would have been so good in 3D. Like, I consider this to be part of the cyberpunk movement in the 80s, like Blade Runner, stuff like that. Like, Tron is totally cyberpunk, but it's more of a Disney type of cyberpunk. Absolutely. So you can imagine, Tron would have been an excellent thing to transfer into 3D for Disney, but, you know, they didn't, and I don't think they will, because I'm not sure Disney's going to be a thing much longer, and considering what Disney has turned into and the kind of business dealings they're doing, in a way, I'm kind of, I'm a huge Disney fan, but not of modern, current-day Disney. Okay, I don't know. So, that's the issue. Okay. My camera is kind of, yeah. Of course, my camera. Okay, well, Tron would have been good. It would have been really good. I know they did Tron Legacy in 3D, and that was awesome too, but I was always kind of disappointed that they did not do the original Tron in 3D. Missed opportunity. Total, complete missed opportunity, in my opinion. Okay. So, let's see what else there is. What else did Disney miss? Like, oh yeah, frickin' Alice in Wonderland. Could you imagine how trippy that would have been? How great of a visual treat that would have been in 3D. This movie was screaming for 3D, and they never frickin' did it. Well, anyway. Alice in Wonderland, like, I know Tim Burton did his version in 3D, but really, there is no comparison. Not really. I thought Tim Burton would have been great for Alice in Wonderland. And, like, the thing is, I know Tim Burton is a Disney employee, but sucks to say it, Tim Burton is no Walt Disney. Yeah, anyway. Could you imagine, like, how cool that would have been, though? How absolutely cool that would have been to see Alice in Wonderland in 3D. That would have been one of the better 3D movies if they did it right. As it is, like, the live-action Alice in Wonderland wasn't really that good. Oh, just a second. Here we go. Another one. Treasure Planet. Like, I really do think, like, Treasure Planet was, one of the more underrated Disney movies. It came out in a time where I really needed to see it at that age, and I didn't because they marketed it straight into the ground, just like they did with John Carter, because of Disney politics. Gee, I wish I had $88 billion to blow. I wish I could afford to, like, make a multi-million-dollar movie and just flush it down the toilet. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit bitter towards Disney lately. I don't know why that is. I kind of do, actually. Okay. Um, anyway. Treasure Planet would have been great in 3D. It's like a crime against cinema this movie didn't get put into 3D. Like, this was absolutely screaming for it. Like, if you haven't seen Treasure Planet, absolutely watch it. I am currently hiding a bit, but that's on purpose. Um, I'd highly recommend Treasure Planet. Actually, read the book Treasure Island. That's something I did appreciate in the commentary. Like, if you watch the commentary to Treasure Planet, they do tell you to read the book Treasure Island. That's a book I recently read. It's like, you didn't read it as a kid? Like, no, I had, like, other issues going on. Read plenty as a kid, though. Read Treasure Island recently. I was having trouble reading it until I made it to the island. Once I made it to the island, the book picked up, and I really ran with it. So, speaking of pirates and classic literature, there's another movie I think really didn't. It really needed to be put into 3D. Let's just say that. It absolutely needed to be put into 3D. And, let's see. Just a second. I would say that movie is a rather older movie, but it is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I don't know if any of you have seen 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea with James Mason. Yes, I think you might remember me mentioning James Mason earlier. He was in the Sherlock Holmes movie, Danger Under Baker Street, much older. But in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, he was far younger, and he was very sinister and calculating. And it was a brilliant performance. The movie was brilliant. And the thing is, that movie was frickin' screaming for 3D. This isn't really... I'm going to pull up an image for it. It's not really an image from the movie, but, like, it's more of an illustration of what could have been. Could you imagine something like this in 3D? Like, anyway, yeah, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is an underrated movie. It's from 1954. I think it's like the second movie ever shot in widescreen. One of the first few movies shot in color. Like, they really had to figure out how to shoot widescreen movies with this. And it was quite good. Absolutely. You know, you think it's made for kids, but it's actually pretty much for adults too. And interestingly enough, this movie is rated G. It's probably the most well-crafted, well-put-together, most highly financed movie I've ever seen that's been rated G. I'll tell you that. So what's another? It's another movie I think like really deserved to be in 3D. Well, going through the Disney movies right now for the most part. So let's pull up another Disney movie I think deserved to be in 3D, and that's Tarzan. This movie totally was screaming to be in 3D. And I'm like, well, I haven't like seen much of Tarzan. I would say in terms of film, like the Tarzan movie is perhaps the truest movie to what Tarzan should be on film. Like, the visuals were amazing. Like, they're using the computer-controlled animated camera thing. It's like a computer animation camera, whatever. They're using CGI and animation together in a certain controlled camera to make it look like Tarzan was surfing through things. And they also did that a lot in Treasure Planet, which is why that was so good too. So, What's another movie that should have been put in 3D? Oh, I know. Um, second. It's rather a detective noir movie. I I do like detective noir, and this one is possibly my favorite detective noir movie. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? This movie so needed to be in 3D, but I guess like it's not going to be. And no, I don't think the tunes should have been in 3D. Obviously, the tunes should remain 2D. But like, I think I would have sold the movie better if like it was in 3D. I really do think so. Um, anyway, uh, absolutely watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It is a classic, and like, uh, what's funny is like if you're looking for something to be triggered by, like, I hate that. I hate that word triggered. Like, I miss the thing where it's like you push somebody's button because triggering is so stupid. I'm not going into that right now. Like, I have personal feelings about the word triggered and how it's applied in today's context, and how I think it's complete bullshit, but that's not the issue. That is not the issue. Anyway, let's see. Anyway, Fantasia 2000 would have been good too, actually. Like, Fantasia 2000 would have been absolutely nice in that, so... What's the next movie that should have been adapted into 3D? Well, it's not just one movie. It is actually several, and I will give you a visual clue as to what I think should have been adapted into 3D next. Yeah, frickin' Star Wars. All of the original 6 Star Wars movies should have been released on 3D Blu-ray. Absolutely. I would have bought those again. Like, if you're wondering like how to sell more Star Wars when everybody has Star Wars, either release the original trilogy cuts, which people will buy it, or release it in 3D Blu-ray. People will buy it. Trust me. Star Wars, like the original Lucas Star Wars, would have been fantastic in 3D. Trust me. Would have been absolutely brilliant. But I think like they have been transforming them into 3D, like at the Star Wars cons or whatever. I kept checking in occasionally to see like if they had released them. Of course, have you released? Have you converted all of the original 6 Lucas Star Wars movies into 3D? And ultimately, I don't know if they ever finished the project. I hope they did. I would love to see Star Wars in 3D one day. And it's like, despite like how my issues with Disney, like, I'm pretty sure I would like buy Star Wars in 3D. So yeah, release that shit, Disney. You know. Anyway. So what else would I buy in 3D? I will tell you. Second. It would actually be quite obvious what I would buy in 3D. As I said, I once said I was the biggest Indiana Jones fan in the Pacific Northwest, and while that is, I think that may be true. Like, I think there might be other people that could give me a run for my money. So, point is, like, if they release Indiana Jones in 3D, I'd absolutely buy that shit. Like, all 4 movies. But, why stop at 4, Like, I don't know how many people know this, but, like, there is more Indiana Jones than just Harrison Ford. Like, Harrison Ford is not the only actor to play Indiana Jones. That is similar to James Bond in a way, very similar to James Bond, because like many actors have played James Bond, but they're always playing the same James Bond. And like there have been at least 4 different actors to play Indiana Jones, but they're always Indiana Jones. And, like, believe it or not, like, I do want The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones also released on 3D, in 3D, you know? Absolutely. Like, convert that shit now, please. Anyway, Young Indiana Jones is a very good series. In fact, like, when I first showed one of my first drafts of my book, another shameless plug, to my mother, like, she was reading The Adventures of Robin in the Third Crusade, and she's like, you wrote an episode of Young Indiana Jones. It's like, kind of sort of did. Learned a lot, too. I imagine, like, the people that were researching and writing Young Indiana Jones also learned a lot. So, you know, yeah. So, let's see. Young Indiana Jones is definitely a series worth picking up. I know they talk a lot about, like, how they pretty much cut together different episodes to turn them into movies. They got rid of the episodic format and got rid of the old man, played Old Indy. Granted, I kind of wish they had kept the Old Indy segments, like, as bonus features on the discs. They didn't do that, but I'm really glad they did have the documentaries, the educational documentaries. I'm really grateful for that. Extremely. I watched those documentaries on those DVDs. Became so much smarter about history, like, and, like, not only, like, the world, but my place in it. Like, that is, yeah, that's awesome, like, just learning that much. And, you know, I'll tell you, like, once a year, I pop in Young Indiana Jones, and I watch all the way from my first adventure, all the way to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I tell you, if you do the same thing, like, I've watched it a few times with a few different people, all 26 movies, and, you know, they didn't really care for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but, like, once they got through all of Young Indiana Jones and the regular Indiana Jones, once we finished Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, they're like, I actually like that movie now. It's like, I know, it makes it seem much more natural and a fitting conclusion to Indiana Jones. And I guess that was always kind of by design. I just feel like that was a sort of a design flaw in that movie in a way, was that it kind of, to really appreciate it, you need to watch 25 other movies. But I also want the Zorro movies with Antonio Banderas to be, like, released in 3D. Absolutely. I wouldn't mind seeing a 3D Zorro, but I really wouldn't mind seeing a 3D Catherine Zeta-Jones. That'd be nice. I could deal with that. Please release that. Apparently I need that, and I didn't know I needed that, but I do. Okay, yeah. Please release that in 3D. I will buy it. We all need a little bit of a 3D Catherine Zeta-Jones in our living room, don't we? Anyway, let's see. What else? Let's see. Oh, yeah. Well, in terms of, like, in terms of history, I really do like history. It's interesting, but, like, there is this one historical movie, comic book movie about history I like. It's like a lot of people felt like it was, you know, completely unrealistic, not historically accurate at all. I'm like, of course it wasn't historically accurate. It's freaking 300. It's like a big fish story. Like, the whole movie is a big fish story being told around the campfire. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, a lot of the stuff that happened in this movie, you know, like, didn't actually happen in... No, it didn't happen in history, and it didn't happen in the movie's universe either. Like, the guy telling the story was making these guys seem... Well, these guys were pretty badass regardless, but the point is that the whole movie was a big fish story, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, everything was exaggerated to the extreme, and I frickin' loved that. Like, that movie was frickin' awesome, and they would never release a movie like that today, because Hollywood sucks. Well, yeah. Anyway, let's see. What's another movie that could have been released in 3D? Because, yeah, I know like 300 Rise of an Empire was released in 3D, and yeah, I do have that movie in 3D. I really like it in 3D. I like seeing Eva Green in 3D in that movie. It's a great movie. And in fact, if you didn't know you needed that movie in 3D, like, yeah, you do. That movie's freaking great. And what I love about it is, it's like the whole thing is set on the water during the naval engagement with Xerxes' troops and everything. And like, so it's all naval battles and stuff. And yeah, what's cool is like, it's not so much that you fear what's on the water, so much as you should be fearing what's in the water. So, yeah, let's see. Have okay. Well, anyway, let's see. What's the next movie? Well, you can tell I'm kind of a Frank Miller fan, so of course the next movie should be the original Sin City. Now I know the second Sin City is also in 3D. I do not have that movie in 3D, which I know. It's like, why don't you have that movie in 3D? Well, it's weird, but like, I didn't really care for it. I think they waited too long. I figure like if they released it like in 2007 or 2008, I probably would have liked the movie more than I have. But I don't know. It's weird. The chronology seems like the chronology of both 300, the 300 sequel, and the chronology of the Sin City sequel is a bit wonky in terms of how it plays with time. But I felt like the 300 sequel made a bit more sense in terms of the chronology than Sin City 2. Again, maybe I need to watch Sin City 2 some more, which I admit I do. But I feel like the original Sin City really was screaming for a 3D conversion. And yeah, again, like Sin City 2 has Eva Green in 3D, and it's nice. And like, here's why is like Eva Green in a bunch of Frank Miller comic book movie sequels? Well, to be fair, I'm not really the best at gossip, but from my understanding is that Frank Miller had divorced his wife, Lynn Varley, who worked on his comics. And I think because he was working on Hollywood movies at the time, I think somehow he got to date Eva Green. And like, I think at some point after she was in the movies, I think they broke up. And like, I think, this is my theory, I think that's why Frank Miller climbed into a bottle for years before eventually climbing out. Because, you know, if you divorce your wife, you go on to date Eva Green, and you break up, like, you know you're not going to do any better for the rest of your life. You know you're never going to do better. So, yeah, I guess like the bottle would be a natural conclusion to come to. But I'm glad he's out of the bottle now, and I look forward to hopefully more Sin City and 300 movies. But they're not going to get made because, you know, screw Hollywood, you know? Yeah. Anyway. Let's see what else was there. Zora's Spirit. Okay. Well, I felt like the cool thing about Sin City and like what it like did as opposed to any other comic book movie, I do feel that Sin City is possibly the best comic book movie ever made because it wasn't a comic book movie. It was a movie that was turned into a comic book. And that's what's unique about Sin City. That's what's so freaking brilliant about it. And, yeah. Talking enough about that. I'm sorry. We should move on to the next movie. The Spirit. Like, yeah. I actually did like this movie. Like, I know, it's like, what, are you crazy? It's like, kind of, sorta. But I still liked this movie. Anyway, the point is that The Spirit was based off a Will Eisner comic, and I liked this movie so much watching it in theaters. I brought a friend to another theater in a more dangerous part of town, just so we could watch it again. And he was laughing too. I remember watching this movie. It's like advertised to be the next like Sin City. I'm going into the theater and I'm watching this movie and I'm not sure what to make of it. And like I see like the spirit go into the mud pit and he's getting into a fight with Samuel L. Jackson. And I'm just looking at this unfold and I'm like wondering what to make of it. Then like the spirit gets Samuel L. Jackson underneath the mud, just pounding the frickin' crap out of him with his fist, as he's underneath the mud, just over and over and over again. And then he stops, and he's just holding it there. And then he just starts pummeling him some more. And at that point I'm like, oh wait, it's okay to laugh. So I was just laughing my ass off throughout that entire movie. And like I had such a good time. I was explaining it to my friend, and I brought him again to a more dangerous part of town to watch the movie in another theater that was playing it at the time. And we're just both laughing our asses off at it. So like I go to my local comic shop and I'm like, do you have any Spirit comics? So they point me towards the Spirit archives. And yeah, I actually finished reading the Spirit recently because I've been devoting a lot of time towards reading this year. As I said, I just finished on Stranger Tides, and it's the 33rd book I've read this year. A lot of time to read. And yeah, so The Spirit was a visually interesting movie, and it's like, but The Spirit sucked. It's like, well, that's because they marketed it wrong. They were marketing it as like another Sin City, and it wasn't another Sin City. It truly wasn't. Like, it was another movie, like an earlier kind of movie. And like everybody knows this movie, though I don't know how many people actually like it. I think that they were trying to make, a modern version of the 60s Batman. And that's another movie that should be made into 3D. Absolutely. Convert the 60s Batman movie into 3D. It's so kooky, it's so colorful, it's so Batman. And I'm going to say something really controversial during this stream. The Adam West Batman, in my opinion, is possibly the most comic book accurate version of Batman we've ever gotten on film. On live action film, anyway. Like, obviously there's, Batman the Animated Series, But, like, when it comes to live action, there's never been a more faithful depiction of Batman than in the 60s comic book movie in the series. I know that's controversial to say, but think about it objectively. Like, objectively, this is the most faithful to what the comic books are. Like, not only just of the 60s, but, like, if you apply it even to the modern day version, yeah, this is, like, it's a brighter version of Batman, but, like, I think, like, the 60s version of Batman gets Batman better than any other, like, live-action depiction or adaptation. Absolutely. And I know that's controversial to say, but it shouldn't be, because it's so comic book. The whole movie, the whole show, it's completely comic book. And it gets that. And I'm going to say something else kind of controversial. I think that perhaps the best director that Batman could have gotten was Joel Schumacher. Now, before you, like, hang me an effigy in the comments, let me explain. Like, Joel Schumacher loved dark Batman. He said, like, that he wanted to do a dark Batman movie, And the thing is, like, after Batman Returns and everything with Happy Meals and shit, like, they wanted a funner Batman. So they told him to do, like, a funner version of Batman, which he did. And, like, as he was directing the movie, like, Nicole Kidman was complaining about, like, her outfit. She's, like, saying, I don't think, like, a criminal psychologist would be wearing something like this. And, like, this is what he said that made me understand he was perfect as a comic book director. Joel Schumacher, like, looked at her criticism and said, Nicole, it's a comic book. And she's like, right. See, he got it. He got it. And the thing is, like, he wanted to do Dark Batman after he made the most successful movie of the year with Batman Forever. The studio wanted him to do another lighter version of Batman and introduce Robin. So he did, and, like, it flopped because it was just a giant toy commercial and not a Batman movie. And, like, unlike the 60s Batman, Batman and Robin didn't get the joke. At least it thought it got the joke, but it didn't. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, I like the fact that, you know, while Adam West is far from the best live action depiction of Batman, how come it is that Adam West is the best Bruce Wayne we've ever gotten in live action? I honestly believe that, you know? He is. He totally is the best Bruce Wayne we've ever had. And it's like every other Bruce Wayne, yeah, he's a good man, you can tell that, but he doesn't really come across as that, you know? Like, he has anger. It's not the fact. It's kind of difficult to explain, but, like, you know, when you see all the other actors who play. When you see the. Going crazy here. When you see all the other actors who have played Bruce Wayne, you get the fact that they're good men. But the thing is like, with Adam West, he displays that he's a good man. He absolutely displays it. And, like, I don't think, like, any of the other Bruce Wayne actors have really displayed, like, blatantly how much of a good man Bruce Wayne is. Anyway, that's my issue. But enough about 60s Batman, which is actually awesome if you're totally into Batman. Eventually you get around to 60s Batman. At first you might detest it, but eventually you grow to love it. Just like Mrs. Isaacson's coffee. Anyway, Robin Hood with Errol Flynn totally needs to be made into 3D. This is like a childhood classic I didn't see until I was like 21. So, anyway, yeah. This is a great movie. Errol Flynn is fantastic. And I'll keep saying this in my streams. This is Stan Lee's favorite Errol Flynn movie, his favorite movie in general. I know the internet keeps saying that it's Captain Blood. They're wrong. How do I know that? Because I talked to Stan Lee personally, and he told me Robin Hood is his favorite movie. So, yeah. It's Robin Hood, dudes. Like it always has been. Yeah, pretty much like... There's Batman, and there's Robin, you know? Batman? Robin. Okay. Well, anyway. It's, Robin Hood is a fantastic classic of a movie screaming for 3D. The telling of the legend, I think, is still the best retelling of the legend in film history. No other film has really gotten Robin Hood as well as the Errol Flynn movie has. I think that you'd have to do a lot of recharging of batteries on your 3D glasses to finish that, but it would be worth it, absolutely. Probably like watch a disc, one disc per charge, or if you have the right glasses, you can do like 2 discs per charge. Anyway, okay, so... But yeah, like Lord of the Rings is like, it raised the bar, and I don't think it's ever been surpassed in terms of cinema. I really don't think so. It's like one of those things where, like, you see the bar being raised in cinema. Like, when the original King Kong came out, it raised the bar. When Jaws came out, it raised the bar again. When Star Wars came out, it raised the bar. When Jurassic Park came out, it raised the bar. And let's just say, like, the last time I saw the bar raised was with Middle-earth. Yeah, the story of Middle-earth that Tolkien wrote. I think the bar was raised to such an insane degree with that film. It did things that still, like, I don't think have been matched to the day, though, like, God knows they've tried. It told a story that, well, that's something that I found is, what I found is that, in the 2000s, they're starting to tell stories that weren't supposed to be able to have been told. For example, Frank Miller didn't think Sin City could be told in film. Well, he ended up telling it in film. Like, nobody thought Lord of the Rings could actually be made into a film. Tolkien sure didn't think Lord of the Rings could be made into a film. They made it into a film. like Watchmen, like it's a film nobody thought could actually be made, but Zack Snyder came closest to making that movie. And then there's Legend by Ridley Scott, another movie that follows pretty much in the fairy tale genre that Tolkien also wrote. Absolutely, Legend is a fantastic film. I remember watching it as a kid. It freaked me out, but I loved it, you know? That was like the great thing about kids' movies in the 80s. Like, they freaked your kid out, but we loved it. It freaked us kids out, but we loved it, you know? Absolutely. Like, maybe kids like to be scared sometimes. Not too extremely, but we do like being scared while entertained. Like, that's kind of the point. Like, if you can scare your audience while entertaining them, like, it's kind of good to do. Like, people like to be scared. Like, some people really don't like to be, but as a general rule, people do like to be scared. It's, I think it's because it makes us feel alive, you know? Absolutely. And, anyway, I was watching, commentary on the extended cut of, Legend by Ridley Scott, and, he was talking about how, you know, ultimately today, like, it would be a lot easier to shoot Legend just using completely CGI. It would be also hell of a lot more expensive. How he was like speaking about working with this guy, the visual effects supervisor, and like the visual effects supervisor kept telling him the same thing. If you can do it for real, I can't make it look realer than that. So whenever they could do something for real, they would do that. And like that's something Ridley Scott subscribes to, and I do too. Like you can't get realer than real. So if you're trying to do something with CGI, like when you can do it for real, it's probably going to look better if you do it for real. Anyway, Sleepy Hollow. That's another movie I think like should have been. It's 12/21. It's no longer Halloween. It is now National November Writing Month. I'm going to have to start writing 10 pages today. Well, anyway. Okay, well, that went by a bit. Well, Sleepy Hollow is definitely like a movie that deserved to be put into 3D. I would dare say that Sleepy Hollow is Tim Burton's best movie. Well, best live-action movie, and I'd say that The Nightmare Before Christmas is Tim Burton's best movie, and I know it's directed by Henry Selick. That's why I'm saying like Sleepy Hollow is the best movie that Tim Burton directed. I'd say like the best Tim Burton movie is The Nightmare Before Christmas, and Tim Burton wrote the poem. Like he worked on that movie. Like you can see his fingerprints all over it, but he had a team make it for him. So I do know Tim Burton was involved in The Nightmare Before Christmas. Again, but Sleepy Hollow is the best movie he's directed, and I'm pretty sure this movie pretty much created a resurgence in Christopher Lee's career. He had Christopher Lee come in here to do a role, and like after that, like Christopher Lee was in movies like crazy, and like good for him, you know? Yeah. Anyway, Christopher Lee is the Hammer Dracula. He's also plays Saruman in Lord of the Rings, and he's Count Dooku in Star Wars. And in case you're wondering, yes, Count Dooku is like a Star Wars type name for Count Dracula. It's like he's like, I'm never playing Dracula again. George Lucas got you to, dude. He got you to play Dracula again. I don't know if you understood that or not. Okay, anyway. That's kind of funny. Okay, so let's see. I do feel like Johnny Depp was giving a really great performance, a really restrained performance, but a really great performance. Like, it's unusual to see Johnny Depp give a performance this restrained in a movie lately. I do think, like, when he went to play, I think in a way, like, he managed to subdue Hunter S. Thompson for this movie, but I feel like as he went on through his career, like, especially with Pirates of the Caribbean, he was the Hunter S. Thompson of the Seven Seas, and, like, after that performance, like, nobody had really seen anything like that since probably since Doc Holliday. But the point is like we're enamored with Johnny Depp's portrayal, and after that, I think that kind of cursed his career because like in almost every other movie Johnny Depp made from that point after Pirates, everybody wanted their own version of Jack Sparrow. I think even Tim Burton wanted his own versions of Jack Sparrow from Johnny. And Johnny was willing to oblige. He's a great actor. And every time he was doing a variation on Jack Sparrow to oblige them to get their own version of it. But I feel like, in a way, Johnny hasn't really been able to experiment as greatly. I feel like he's been kind of stuck doing variations on Jack Sparrow, which they're great performances, by the way. Johnny Depp is a chameleon. He disappears into those roles completely. You don't see Johnny Depp, you see that character. I just feel like the characters are kind of becoming related. They're not similar, they're related, but they're variations on a theme because people want that. And of course people want that. Jack Sparrow's a great freaking character. Like, I would dare say he's like the greatest pirate character ever created. Yeah. Okay, well, that's a hell of a statement right there. Okay. Let's see. So that's Sleepy Hollow. In terms of other crazy artistic movies that should be turned into 3D, I would say that Suspiria is definitely a movie that needs to be turned into a 3D film. Now here's the thing about Suspiria. This is a horror movie that got to me. Like, this really got to me because this isn't what I was expecting out of a horror movie. Like, you know how I say, like, when I really like something, it's usually the complete opposite of what something they usually do? Suspiria is the complete opposite of a horror movie while being a horror movie. And, you know, the thing is, like, horror movies are supposed to be really quiet, you know, really suspenseful. This movie is loud, brash, and in your face with the soundtrack. Horror movies are supposed to be dark, musty, you know, cold, you know. This movie is artistic, it's vibrant, it's colorful, it's beautiful. Like, this film is a work of art, you know. Like, this, I wish I could go further into it, but this movie is essentially a remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I know, right? It's true. There's a remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs by Walt Disney, and it's freaking terrifying. But if you, like, think back to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs by Walt Disney, that's kind of terrifying as well, don't you think? Anyway, I just find that Suspiria is, like, a very underrated horror movie, but also, if you're into horror, you've obviously come across the name Suspiria at one point or another. Suspiria is definitely worth checking out. Absolutely. I think you can get it from Synapse Films. Yeah, that's where I got it. They actually have this cover on Synapse Films. Like, anyway. So, what's the next one? Mars Attacks, another Tim Burton movie. Like, based off the 1950s Topps trading cards, the controversial ones that parents hated. Of course, like, Tim Burton, like, makes a brilliant movie out of it. That's the thing, like, growing up, like, I was watching this movie, and, like, I really didn't like it, you know? But, like, the thing is, like, growing up still in my 20s, I tried watching it, I still didn't quite like it, but I was getting it a bit more. Now that, like, I'm growing a bit further, I'm more into B movies and stuff like that, like, and more into movies and stuff. I watched this movie recently, Mars Attacks, and as I was watching it, I was like, I get what you're doing, I get it, this is fun. And yeah, this is a fun movie. Like, Mars Attacks is, like, I like fun movies. I should do, like, a show about, just, like, you know, all the movies that are just fun, you know? It's just fun to watch. And Mars Attacks is definitely that. It's got Jack Nicholson in dual roles. Glenn Close as the First Lady. Natalie Portman as the first daughter, Jack Black as a jarhead. It's freaking great. Um, anyway, if I would highly recommend watching Mars Attacks. Break it out and watch it if you have access to it. Like, it's a fun movie. It's wacky. It's zany. It's totally 50s sci-fi. I can't believe like I didn't get what they were doing, but now I do. And it's good to get it later in life. Better late than never, right? The movie's kooky. It's zany. It's brilliant. So, what is the next movie I would, what's the next movie I would totally recommend being transformed into 3D? Oh, well, it's not so much movie, such as movies again. Yeah, I want, I want a Monster Mash. I really do. I want all the frickin' Universal classic monster movies turned into 3D. Now I get like they released Creature from the Black Lagoon and Revenge of the Creature in 3D. Good for them. Now let's go back and convert all of the other Universal monsters into 3D. Absolutely. And here's the other thing, and I forget who said it, like if you it's a video I was looking up in terms of like Hollywood and stuff and what they should do to turn things around. And ultimately somebody came up with something I totally agree with. Bring back the Universal monsters and like try to get the remaining family members who are still living to like sign off on deep fakes. Bring back Bela Lugosi as Dracula. Bring back, Boris Karloff as Frankenstein. Bring back Claude Rains as the Invisible Man. Bring them all back, Absolutely. Like, deepfake their voices, deepfake how they look, absolutely. Like, have them do new adventures. Like, we do have new technology we can exploit. We can have frickin' Dracula turn into 1,000,000 bats. Like, we can have him have fangs now. There's a lot of things we can do. I always felt like the 2010 Wolfman was a great jumping off point for, like, a new monster movie. I felt like the 2010 Wolfman, well, it had spent like a lot of years in production hell, which was why I was so impressed with it, because it was as good as it was, so faithful to the original story, yet like being more violent, more visceral, more horror. Like, but 2010 Wolfman, I think, is a very underrated movie. It's a lot better than people give it credit for. It's a lot better than it has any right being. And I just felt like it got the tone of like what Universal monsters should be correctly. And yeah, anyway, like I just feel like instead of like bringing back, I don't know, I'm saying that we didn't. If we had the technology today, like we could have brought back Lon Chaney Jr. And I'm saying like we still can, but I'd still like to see Hugo Weaving play the Wolfman in a sequel. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I feel like a lot of that is really untapped potential. And yeah, make it 3D, absolutely. And in fact, in terms of like taking older movies, like I feel like there's one movie that totally screams, absolutely screams for a 3D conversion, and that is, of course, the old classic, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I really do believe that this movie, with its scenic imagery, I really do believe that this is like one of those movies they really missed out on in terms of converting into 3D. Like, this movie is so freaking good, so freaking beautiful, so well told. And what I freaking love about it the most is this is being told directly from Sergio Leone's head. Like, there wasn't really much of a script. I mean, I think there was a script, kind of, but the thing is, like, they weren't using a script, they were using Sergio Leone's head. Like, this is the best Western, I think, to ever be made. Like, I'm still playing through Red Dead Redemption 2. I played through Red Dead Redemption. This still beats Red Dead Redemption in terms of westerns. I'll see about Red Dead Redemption 2, but like freaking The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Greatest western I've ever seen. Greatest western. And Clint Eastwood is badass in it. You can see how like he would take this character later on, transform him into a cop called Dirty Harry, and create the modern action hero. You know, hello Indiana Jones, hello Rambo, you know, like hello Neo, freaking hello Spider-Man and all that, you know. Well, maybe not Spider-Man, but you know, you get what I'm saying. Like he created the modern action hero, and I feel like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly totally deserves to be turned into 3D. So, what's the next 3D movie I think would look good? Well, how about my favorite movie? And what is my favorite movie? You're probably wondering. Well, let me show you. It's like something beast nor man, but something monstrous. Let's see. Something beast nor man, but something monstrous, absolutely. King Kong, the eighth wonder of the world. I really do believe like King Kong should be shutting all these off now, huh? It's good to shut these down. Let's go through like the imagery, like what the stuff, all the stuff we talked about. Second. Hello. Okay. I don't know if I'm still broadcasting. Am I? Just a second. See if I'm still broadcasting. Oh shit. Wait. Am I on? Well, anyway, let's see. I don't have any more imagery. It's like King Kong 2005, The Lost World by Steven Spielberg, which I think is underrated, the Gamma Heisei trilogy, and all the Harryhausen movies should be turned into 3D. I think I might have been cut off from broadcasting. I don't know, but ultimately, I do feel this was a good broadcast. And those are the movies I think were, like, those are the projects I think should have been in 3D. You know, like, screw it, let's throw in Star Wars The Clone Wars. Absolutely, that show should be 3D. Futurama should be 3D. Yeah, frickin' A. Why not? Like, let's make all the cool stuff 3D, you know? And in fact, I can't wait until they bring out the frickin' simulation tank, the holotank. Like, they had like a VR tank at the University of Washington. And then, like, I think as soon as the military, like, heard about this VR tank, they came in, scooped it up. So, I get, like, there are military applications to a VR tank, but, you know, maybe I want my freaking holodeck, too. Like, anyway, never mind. Enough about that. You know, at least once in my life, I would like the holodeck. I'd really like a holodeck to enjoy. I think that's kind of my right as an American to like enjoy a holodeck in my lifetime. Like also to like experience, you know, flying car, rocket packs, hopefully an actual hoverboard. I feel like these are like my right as an American to experience. It's like you took away the Constitution. I should get some other rights, you know. So if I can't have like the right to like freedom of assembly or it's so stupid. Us Americans, like, we act like we have so many rights. The truth is, like, we have less rights than the British do. Like, it may seem like we have the rights. We're not guaranteed those rights. We have the rights they let us have. We don't have any guaranteed rights. That's why I'm saying, like, the British have the Magna Carta. We got rid of the Magna Carta in America. It's BS. It's all BS. So stupid. Like, and you've got these people burning shit down. And it's not that I'm necessarily opposed to that. It's just like I'm kind of opposed to their goals in terms of doing that. And like I find their methods highly dubious in terms of accomplishing anything. So, not going into that. Not that kind of channel. Sorry. Anyway, the point is like very much pro-diversity. Very much like for the downtrodden, the underdog here on this channel, absolutely. I'm just vehemently anti-communist. Vehemently. So, yeah, if I come off like I don't support some certain organizations that it's politically correct to support, that's because political correctness came from Mao's China, comrade, and I don't feel like being politically correct, and I'll call out communist organizations when I feel like it. But yeah, I actually am left of center. I do find myself a bit liberal. Some people call me libertarian. I don't know. The point is like I feel like I'm a bit left. I am a bit left, but I'm very anti-communist. Communism is the extremist part of the left, much like theocratic dictatorships are part of the right-wing extremism. I don't hate right-wingers. I don't hate left-wingers. I don't hate the people in the middle. I just don't like extremists. Like, I think I realized that on September 11th. Now, like, there's a lot of, like, controversy over who actually is responsible for September 11th. A lot of, like, debate going on that I think is well worth having. But the point is like, it doesn't matter if it was, like, terrorists. It doesn't matter if it was the government. It doesn't matter if it was, like, aliens or demons. Taking down those buildings was a pretty frickin' extreme act. So whoever did it obviously qualifies as an extremist. Okay, well, that's... anyway, going a bit political here. Not a political channel. What was I saying? Yeah, it's, okay. You know, it's a bit, it's 12:41, where I'm at least. You know what, I feel good, actually. I'm in the best possible position. I was actually going to upload several videos this month, but, I didn't. It's like, I was actually going to upload one earlier, but I was looking at the video, and it's like, oh my god, I was fat. It's true, like, I'm looking at, like, these old videos that were, like, taken a year ago. I'm like, man, I was fat. I've gotten so fit lately, you know? I've lost so much weight. And, like, the clothes that barely fit me are now too big for me. And I feel good about that, you know? Like, I've been working towards this for a while. Like, it's not the fact, like, I was fat because I was eating too much. Like, I was a very sick kid. Like, and so in my teenage years, they put me on a new medication, and, like, unfortunately, the medication was always was also a steroid, so, like, they left me on it for way too long, and then, like, when they took me off, it had a half-life, and ultimately, let's just say, like, after working out a lot, and the half-life being, like, the half-life vanished, and I've been working out a lot, and I lost a bunch of weight. And I feel good about it, you know? I do. And, like, I'm in a place where I've got my own place. I've got my career about to start. I've got a good body now. And, I've got a lot of knowledge. And, like, I've got a decent bank account. So, yeah, I think I'm at the best possible position in my life now. And you know what? Yeah, just a second. It's talking under indie. What are they doing that second? Video capture device up to the top. Just, okay. Turn it on. up here. And yeah, feeling good. So, 12:44. Anything else to talk about? I don't know. Like I had like this, thing where I was going to once I lost all this weight. Unfortunately, I can't do it because of COVID now. But I had like this dream of going to a bar, and just sitting down next to like a girl at the. If there was a girl at the bar I fancy, I was gonna just sit down next to her, you know, and I was just gonna sit there for a while, and then I was just gonna be like, I'm a naughty boy! Naughty, 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 naughty. Yeah, I don't know what would have happened, but it would have been interesting to do, huh? Anyway, I'm weird. I really am weird, but, that kind of explains why I've kind of finally turned into a writer, you know. I don't see my job as being a writer. I don't see my job as being a filmmaker. I don't see my job as being like, here's my job. I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. And I'm going to use any medium I can to tell a story. Absolutely. But also, again, I am also a fan of things. And, yeah, if somebody, messes with something I love, probably going to call them out on the show. Like, if we talk in actual person, we'll be cordial, we'll be professional. But listen, I'm on the internet, I'm going to be a loudmouth. Everybody on the internet is a loudmouth. Even when we do try to act professional, we're still loudmouths. I could go on a bunch of, pretty professional people on YouTube who have, said comments that kind of showed they were being loudmouths at that moment. But, that's kind of the nature of the beast. For some reason online, we're willing to put out a version of ourselves that isn't actually ourselves. It's a more extreme version. I'd say because social media is kind of like a drug. It's kind of like we're on cocaine. I'd say, yeah, the social media thing is like cocaine, where, you're yourself, but you're a more extreme version of it. And, what do we know about cocaine? It does make you more of yourself, but it's also very self-destructive. It's a very destructive drug. And I find that, well, anyway, that's my opinion, to be fair, sugar is just as addictive as cocaine, but to be fair, too much sugar is also destructive. You get the point. Point is, don't do cocaine. Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, speaking of cocaine and on Stranger Tides, it was the most expensive movie ever made. No offense to the filmmakers, it's very, I don't know what you're doing with it, and if that movie was the most expensive movie ever made, I think some of the, I'm not gonna say it. I have an idea of where a good portion of the budget might have gone, but I'm not gonna say where, okay? I'm not gonna do it, okay? Well, anyway, on to other things. Anyway, sorry about that. So, I'm actually kind of starting to play video games. I am playing Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. I got it back in around 2016, and I'm finally getting around to playing it now on my Wii U. Yes, I have a Wii U. No, I do not have a Switch. Yes, I'm going to get a Switch, but I'm going to get a Nintendo Switch. But not until this Christmas. I got the Nintendo Wii U so I could play Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And I was going to throw a complete hissy fit if they kind of moved Breath of the Wild from the Wii U to the Switch and only brought it over to the Switch. Because if they didn't release it for the Wii U, the whole reason I bought that system, Like, I was gonna throw a fit, but luckily they released it on Breath of the Wild. And when the Switch came out, it did have Breath of the Wild, and it had a bunch of other really great games. People were saying, "Wow, like Nintendo's coming out with great games," and it's like, absolutely they are. They came out with the most of those great games on the Wii U. So because I had like all those great games on the Switch for the Wii U, I've been waiting for a decent library of Switch games to come out. And now that a decent library of Switch games has come out that's exclusively for the Switch that I don't own for the Wii U, I'm going to buy the system. Okay, so that's that. And I don't know why we're talking about the Nintendo Switch anymore, but I remember like talking to my Catholic friend Matt, and like he was saying, "Oh yeah, I got a Switch for my kid." I'm like, "Holy shit, Matt!" And he's like, "No, no, it's a Nintendo Switch." I'm like, "Holy shit, Matt!" He's like, "No, no, it's the name of a video game system." I was like, "Oh, okay, well, hope he has fun with it." Okay. Anyway, no, Matt's great. Yeah. So, uh, anything else? Oh yeah, like I was playing Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag for the Nintendo Switch, and yeah, so I start out on this island, right? And I'm shipwrecked, and I make my way off the island. I get to like an island town. I'm trying not trying to spoil too much of the game. I make it to an island town, and I'm grinding through that town for like hours upon hours, like getting supplies for a ship, getting a ship, like obtaining a crew for a ship, like doing so much dangerous shit, working my ass off to get to the point where I can be a pirate, right? Finally, after hours later, I finally get the ship, the crew. I'm out there being a pirate, and the first thing they say to me in the game is like, "You do know you're only captain because you're white, right?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, fuck you too." So, yeah, pretty much. that was like that was like a piece of writing that didn't need to be in there. Um, it's like I'm trying to be a pirate, and you're talking about critical race theory in a video game. Yeah. Anyway, that was an annoyance, but I'm hoping that's like one of the last. You can see what people are complaining about now. So, yeah, as it is, like I've been taking it easy from the internet lately. Find I was getting rather stressed out, and I had other things I had to do anyway, like lose weight. I had other things to do, like watch Abbott and Costello movies and write. I am writing quite a bit. I don't want to give too much away, but I've been outlining a lot. A lot of stuff is going on behind the scenes, very exciting, and it's getting close. It's like the books are getting close. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to finish my first book for NaNoWriMo today. Why not? It's the first day of National November Writing Month. Why not finish my first book? Then like go from there. See if I can finish at least 3 books this month. And like a bunch of outlines. That's kind of my thing. But yeah. My goal really isn't to just get to 50,000 words or complete a book. My goal is to finish up a lot of things I've been meaning to do in terms of my writing. And maybe my goals are different, but I see my goals just as valid for National November Writing Month. Like I have books I've written. I keep writing. I will continue to write. Like I was asked like why don't you compete in National November Writing Month? And I told this girl who asked me that how much I write, and she's like, "Oh, you don't need to do National November Writing Month. You do that year round." And it's like, that's the thing. Like, I'm trying to use this National November Writing Month to kickstart my writing again because I burnt out. That's what happens when you push yourself too hard. But that's also what happens when you're really creative and you've got a lot of ideas you need to get down. So, I have a lot more ideas I need to get down. I've been getting them down, luckily. Like, if you wonder, like, what a writer's best friend is, I'll tell you. His first best friend is a pencil and notepad. The writer's second best friend is, like, the camera on his phone. Because if you have an idea, you can pull out your camera, record yourself saying the idea to the camera. Like, then you'll have it down for posterity. But that's just a little tip I did. I have quite a few story outlines, like, on video files. I probably said too much. Fucking hackers. You're all fucking hackers out there, aren't you? You're all fucking hackers. Anyway, I kind of hacked some toys of mine, like, when I was a kid. So, anyway, it's pretty fun hacking things. I just think coding got a bit too complex for me, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, never mind. Enough about hacking and, hacking video games and, don't hack, and if you do hack, don't get caught. Okay. Enough of my PSA. Okay, anything else? Lockdown. Frickin' lockdown. I'm unsure, like, I'm hearing things like we're going to be opening up, then I'm hearing things like we're heading into a second lockdown, and, yeah, I've been preparing for this. I think this is why, like, I'm staying kind of sane lately. Been preparing for this for decades. Kind of a prepper. Like, I'm kind of glad I got all the food preparations and stuff, though, yeah, I'm also glad I got all the books and, the entertainment and the electronics and stuff. Like, just really prepping for, like, a disaster like this. Like, if I was cut off, like, I'd have things ready. And I do have things ready, luckily. Okay, what's the point? The point is, like, I have a massive media library. Excuse me. I have a massive media library, and, every time I look at it, I see, like, years of my life. I see my lifetime. I also see, like, lots of money I spent on that. And the third thing I see is death. I see a lot of death in it. Yeah, it's one of the things. Like, I was watching Young Indiana Jones, and I was watching a documentary about the Congo, or like it's area of the Africa usually referred to as the Congo. They go through so many revolutions and so many names. I'm just going to call it the Congo because, anyway. I was watching a documentary on the Congo and how, like, there's a lot of rich minerals in the Congo and how, like, a lot of the elements we use in our electronics, my computer, my camera, my phone, my PC, my DVDs, my Blu-rays, my video game systems, my video games, just all this stuff takes, like, minerals from the Congo that, like, people die in camps, like, obtaining. And, like, I have all these electronics and stuff, and I have all these movies, and, I see a lot of entertainment. I get a lot of entertainment out of it, but every once in a while I look at my media library, and I just can't help wondering, like, how much death. How much death. And, like, I wonder how, I wish there was something I could do to change this, but I don't know who to contact, like maybe my local representative, but, they just represent my state. I don't know if they really have anything to do with foreign policy. Like, I'm going to check, maybe I should check on who dictates foreign policy in our country. That'd be a good thing to know. That'd be a good thing to know. Fucking act like I'm such a smart person. I don't even know who's directing foreign policy in my own frickin' country. I can look it up. I'm quite fond of, like, looking up the system in my country. honestly, that's kind of one of the things well, you'll find out in terms of reading my material. But I see like the books I'm going to first release as very American. Like, I see Assassin of the Cross as very American. And, yeah, if you read it, anyway, never mind. Like, I'm not plugging my book too much. I'm shameless. Absolutely shameless. That's what I am. And that's the thing. Like, in a way, I kind of miss, like, back in the 80s and 90s when we kind of did have a sense of shame about things. You know? Like, I think, like, being completely shameless about everything is kind of leading to a breakdown in our society. Like, I see, like, a lot of rampant degeneracy. And I'm not. Yeah, I do. I see a lot of degeneracy in our society in broad public. And it's like, you know, I don't mind like degeneracy. Hell, I would consider myself a degenerate in certain ways, and that's fine, but it's your American right to be a degenerate, but the thing is we used to have a sense of shame, so like we'd be degenerates in private, you know? Like for example, I was talking to like a friend of mine's kids, like her kids were talking about how like, they were like cutting themselves and posting it on social media. And like, me and my friend Elliot were talking to her kids and I'm like, well, that's the thing. Like in high school, we used to cut ourselves, but we kind of kept it to ourselves. We didn't really post it on social media. That wasn't something we talked about. And things are changing, and I'm seeing things like getting so much worse because we don't have a sense of shame about it. And I think a sense of shame shows a sense of decency, and no shame, no decency. And losing decency leads to a breakdown of the moral fabric of society, and a breakdown of the moral fabric of society leads to a breakdown of the function of society, and then you get 2020. Anyway, there's more to it than that. Like, Trump, like, you do know, like, it was pretty much the overuse of political correctness that got Trump elected. There are other factors, too, like the media just constantly covering him for ratings. They gave him so much free advertising. They created their own monster. Like, and the thing is, like, I think they secretly love him. I think they do. They act so outraged, but he's great for ratings. He's great for their ratings. Like, what are they gonna do without Trump? Really? Like, screw them. Like, they got Trump elected. Like, you can't trust them. You can't trust anything the mainstream media says. Like, how screwed up is it that, like, for years, Fox News was known as, like, the propaganda center. And, like, freaking MSNBC and CNN were the bastions of truth. Then, like, in 2016, the election happens. And you're, like, watching everything. And everything is so blatantly scripted. So blatantly scripted on everything. Like, everything is going according to the narrative. And, like, you see this, and they're so blatant about it. They're not even trying to hide it. Anyway, it's, at that point you realize, like, these guys are just as much propaganda as Fox News is. Everybody started to realize it. And the crazy thing is, like, Fox News realized everybody realized it. And they're like, ha! Now everybody sees you're just as much propaganda as we are. You know what? We're going to do something. We're going to actually try to be real news now. And the thing is, that's the crazy thing. Like, Fox News has been trying to be real news lately. I'm not saying they are real news, but I'm just saying they're trying. It's kind of like in Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, it's the Bible. You get points for trying. It's like, of course, like there's the other thing. It's like, pretending to read the Bible is a lie. Anyway, anyway, it's like That's crazy. I'm not saying like the mainstream media is trustworthy. I'm not saying Fox News is trustworthy. I'm saying they're trying, but I'm not saying you should trust somebody trying something. Anyway, be well, it's better to trust somebody that's trying than just somebody that's not trying at all. Perhaps you should be trusting somebody that's succeeding at reporting the news. And that's another thing. Like, I have a hard time finding legitimate sources of news lately. I try to look for independent sources of news. I try to make sure they're reporting the news, and I try to make sure they have integrity. And that's very rare these days. So finding a journalist that reports real news and has integrity is very rare. And I found like a few, and I'm always looking for more. If anybody has any, if anybody has any recommendations for news sources, like I'm open to them. I just, yeah. Anyway, um, anything else? Going a bit political lately, and I said I wasn't a politics channel, and I don't know how long I've been going on for politics, but I should go. Perhaps I will sail the seven seas again, but I think like this has been good for me doing this live stream. I haven't really been posting to my YouTube channel. I've been trying. I've been trying to post to my YouTube channel. Some videos I've tried to upload have been rejected by YouTube, or like, I'm trying, but YouTube's been weird lately, and I'm hoping they haven't cut me off here. They probably have. I don't know, but world's going to shit. I forget like when it was, but I just realized like we're in the decline, we're in the fall. For the longest time I didn't want to think like we're actually anything like Rome. Like I always felt like during the Bush years, like when they were saying like we're in the fall of like America, I was like, no, you're being melodramatic, like, George W. Bush is like he's bad, but he's not that bad. And then like, about like year 5 or 6 of his administration, I read a list of all his scandals, like all the scandals attached to the Bush administration, and I am reading, and I get to like number 200, and at that point, like I had to go take a shower, uh, and then like I'm like, wow, George W. Bush has raised the bar so high for like that kind of scandal, you know, like no administration will be able to like get impeached, you know, because there's so many scandals. And then like Donald Trump gets elected and like he's like hold my beer, and in the first year of his administration, like he gets way more than 200 scandals attached to his administration. And like that's the thing, this is like year 1. Like it took George W. Bush 6 years to accumulate that many. It's interesting. Um, Interesting times. We have a reality television president, of course. And like, here's the thing. With 2020 the way it's been, like, well, with the Donald Trump presidency, like, at first I was freaking out a bunch about Donald Trump, and then like finally I understood what happened. Like, it was a certain moment. Like, I think it was we're taking out some terrorists. Like, anyway, there was this dog, and like he was being like awarded the Medal of Honor by Donald Trump, and Donald Trump was making a great speech about how brave the dog was, how loyal, and how he was man's best friend, and like I'm watching this ceremony of Donald Trump giving the Medal of Honor to a combat veteran dog, and like I'm like, oh, I get it. I finally get the joke. Well played. Well played, Republicans. That's a great joke. You really got us. So yeah, I understand. I understand like Donald Trump now, and yeah, ah, that's actually a really well played joke, Republicans. Yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, we have a reality television president, and like I just realized like the past 4 years have been like a reality television show. And I'm looking at like 2020, and like I'm seeing everything that's happened in 2020, and like I'm seeing uh, I'm seeing there's a asteroid that may or may not hit us on election day, and I'm like, wow, you know, this is like the greatest reality television show I've ever seen. The only problem is that it's not television, it's reality. But don't you think that? Like, wouldn't this be the greatest reality television show you've ever seen? Wouldn't it? I think it is. I think, like, reality is perhaps, like, the greatest reality television show ever. Like, I've been learning things about history. Like, one of the craziest things is, you know, where the term, the colloquialism, let's blow this popsicle stand from. Let's blow this popsicle stand, where that comes from. That's a crazy ass story in history. Same thing with, like, I've got a bridge to sell you. That has a crazy story behind it, too. It's like, the more you study history, the more you realize just how insane it is. And, like, then, like, once you start studying the weirder aspects of history, it gets really insane. And then when you study the religious aspect of history, oh, it gets crazy. Like, once you understand, like, a lot of the stuff, like, that is involved in history, not just, like, what's... There's several aspects to history, varying aspects to history that relate to history. Mythology, for example. Um, I do believe, like, there were some mythological figures in Greek mythology that were historical, like Troy, for example, like the Trojan War, stuff like that. There are various examples of history, and I've made some discoveries of my own in history, writing my book. Like, obviously, like, I wasn't really planning on writing about the Crusades. Like, I was essentially trying to tell another story, but like I had to go into the backstory of the character, which had to do with the Third Crusade. So I didn't know anything about the Crusades, really, not that much. Like, I knew as much as any other person, which is like pretty much a third grader's knowledge of the Crusades. But I started studying the Crusades, and like I found that a lot of the beliefs I had about the Crusades are actually misconceptions, very common misconceptions about the Crusades. And as I was studying like the Crusades, like I found like the Third Crusade was very fascinating. And yeah, anyway, I've gained a lot of knowledge writing this book, and I've made quite a few discoveries of my own in terms of like studying history and where I'm going with the story in terms of my writing. It's going to be very insightful. I can promise you that. Can't wait to. I'm confirming things in terms of my discoveries. Let's just say that. Very exciting. But I'm going to say something about America, the Constitution, the country itself. I find that our judicial system is very much based off of the Indian system on the East Coast when we landed here. And yeah, then of course, like, we've got the Magna Carta, which inspired the Constitution, and of course, like, the system of government we had in terms of like the states and everything. We got that from John Locke. Yeah, like John Locke's philosophy. Uh, Life, liberty, and property. Um, yeah. So, I could go into a whole speech about like why the whole property thing was important. Like essentially, like if you owned land, it essentially said you're contributing to society. Because if you owned land, you had a farm or you had a business or whatever. And if you didn't own land, you weren't really contributing anything, or it didn't show you had a business or anything contributing to society. So yeah, that was kind of the whole thing in terms of like why you had to be a landowner to vote. It essentially said like you had to be contributing something meaningful to society, or like anyway. There's a lot of things about history, and my mom says like I should like go to school and become a history teacher and stuff, and like I've considered it. I have like I thought maybe I should go to school, like learn history, like become a professor. Then I thought like I could go to school for years, learn everything I need to become a professor. Then I'd like spend years doing that, succeed at it hopefully. Then like the first day I'd go in, I'd teach my first class and immediately be fired for telling the truth. So that's why I have no interest in becoming a history professor. I have interest in history and studying it and making discoveries. I I'll share any knowledge I find in more humorous writings, but yeah, um, no interest. I passion for the truth. I do. Uh, so, passion for the truth. Possess. I do. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Hard to do off the cuff, Yoda. Anyway, anything else? No, I have to write a get well letter to someone I know. He is in a car accident. Nearly lost his life. As somebody who is in a car accident myself, I feel I owe him a letter of consolation. So I'm going to go and write some letters, and then like I'll see what I can do tomorrow to write 10 pages. Uh, anyway, point is, first book should come out soon. Second book being done this month. Third book hopefully done this month. Those are my deadlines. So, yeah, this is Holland Timmons, the Astari, signing off.